So the fundraising for this whole project began a long time before the actual script was completed. The script was completed, well, it had various rewrites, but eventually was completed at the end of 2004, but the fundraising started way back in 2003, and we initially applied to the Arts Council for a production grant for this and were turned down, and that took actually writing that application, getting the venues that we needed to get on board to give credence, some kind of credence to our application, all of that research and all of that kind of budgeting and everything, that took a good 3 months, and then another 3 months for the decision, and then we got turned down.
Ali King, production manager, a Caucasian woman with mid-length brown hair. She is wearing glasses.
And there are a number of fairly relevant reasons for that. It was obviously, we'd already been working on it for about 6 months at that point, so it was a huge knock. One that we could have decided to give up, but it made us want to fight more. So we went to the Arts Council, had a very long meeting, analysed all their reasons for saying no, fought for some of the reasons that we believed to be fair within that, and we went back and worked on it again and reapplied.
And we then had to rethink what we were going to do, and sort of remobilise our energy and then reapply, which we did. And it wasn't until June 2004 that we were told that we were going to get the money, and the Arts Council did fund, a substantial amount of the tour production costs. So that was, without that funding, we probably couldn't have done the work. So it was important that we knew we had that money in place at the beginning before we really went ahead with the rest of the fundraising.
Total Key Arts worked in association with Extant to produce this project, and we've spent almost 2 years working on it.
People at work in the Total Key office.
And Total Key is always interested in getting involved in anything that might push the boundaries and challenge art's ideals, or explore new opportunities and possibilities.
It was very clear from the outset that Extant wanted to work with Turtle Key on this project. We had worked with them back in 2002, and they had tour managed for us a production that we brought over from Croatia, of New Life Theatre Company, and we toured the company in their show Zeros and Nils nationally, and that had been a very successful relationship. So we wanted to replicate that again with Resistance, and we put in the application to the Arts Council as a partnership between the two companies. That was great. We had a very, very long tour period set up for this production, 7 weeks in all. Initially it was going to be 5, and the reason why it extended to 7 weeks was because we had booked in at the beginning of March the Croydon Clock Tower, which was great, and what we were going to do was to start off in London, go around the country, and then come back to the Riverside Theatre. So we had this great venue in London to come back to, but they wouldn't commit as to when what week in April they were going to give us. And we were having to carry on booking other venues whilst we were waiting for the Riverside to decide, and eventually they did, and they decided they were going to give us the 25th of April, which meant that we had this sort of really long period to try and find venues. And there was a point where during the tour booking process, Damien O'Connor, my colleague at the time, and myself sat down and saw quite a lot of gaps, into a schedule. And I thought, God, as a producer, we're paying actors to do this 7-week tour, and there are these weeks where there's hardly anything going on. We've got to try and get these weeks filled with some venues. So
it was very important to us to go quite wide across the UK, because one of our aims of this project was to reach blind and visually impaired audiences and groups that would otherwise not necessarily have the opportunity to attend the theatre.
Damien and I kind of got on a mission and started to what we thought was assist Ali as a tour manager who was ultimately responsible for the bookings, and started ringing around, emailing venues all over the place, and got, you know, some quite good venues, but ultimately what transpired was that we got some duplicate bookings in certain regions. So when the tour actually kind of hit the road, the production was going to places like, I don't know, Loughborough, for instance, and then at a certain point going back there again to Leicester, and that really strategically wasn't very wise because it was splitting the audiences in those areas, and so one venue would get you know, hardly any people, and another venue in the region would get, you know, kind of a decent audience, but they would have all gone to one of those venues rather than another because there wasn't enough audience to go to both of those venues. So that, you know, we afterwards, when we had a review, we thought, well, that probably wasn't the best thing to do. But ultimately, in the targeting of where we went, initially we wanted to go to areas where there'd be kind of quite strong visually impaired communities. So, for instance, we went to Loughborough in the East Midlands because we know that there's a college of visually impaired people there, an RNIB college. Similarly, there's an RNIB college at Red Hill, so we went to the Horth in Crawley. We went to Liverpool because of Henshaw's. There's a school called Henshaw's in Liverpool, and there's a strong visually impaired community in Stockton-on-Tees, so we went to the New Vic Theatre there. And I mean, obviously we had some other venues as well dotted around for other reasons, but we really wanted to attract as many of the visually impaired community as we could in different regions, and so chose venues that we thought would be easy for them to attend the show at.
And I think we had some gaps in the tour to start with that we probably should have left because it would have made it more physically practical to do, and we filled up those gaps in almost a panic. We didn't have enough dates, and it did involve us in the end tearing a little bit around the country, and because of the nature, the set was very large, it was very hard get in and get out into the theatre, and there were long drives in between, and it was very exhausting on the technical and stage management crew, and I think we did actually overstretch ourselves, and we certainly learnt that when we actually succeeded in retouring it in